An F-35 was hit over Iran. Not tracked, not chased, hit. And that single moment just cracked open a question the entire concept of stealth was built to avoid. What happens when invisible isn't invisible anymore? The Pentagon confirmed it. No ambiguity, no walkback. A United States F-35 on a deep combat mission inside Iranian airspace took damage mid-flight and was forced into an emergency landing at a regional base. Pilot alive, aircraft intact, investigation underway. And that single moment just cracked open a question the entire concept of stealth was built to avoid. What happens when invisible isn't invisible anymore? The Pentagon confirmed it. No ambiguity, no walkback. A United States F-35 on a deep combat mission inside Iranian airspace took damage mid-flight and was forced into an emergency landing at a regional base. Pilot alive, aircraft intact, investigation underway. But here's where it gets strange. This wasn't near a border. This happened deep inside Iran, exactly where the aircraft is supposed to be safest, not most vulnerable. Standard logic says stealth aircraft don't get hit. That's the entire point. The F-35 isn't built to outfight defenses. It's built to bypass them entirely, using shape, materials, and internal weapon design to shrink its radar signature down to something closer to a bird than a jet. In theory, Iran shouldn't even see it, let alone track it, let alone fire on it. But something clearly saw something. But here's where it gets strange. This wasn't near a border. This happened deep inside Iran, exactly where the aircraft is supposed to be safest, not most vulnerable. Standard logic says stealth aircraft don't get hit. That's the entire point. The F-35 isn't built to outfight defenses. It's built to bypass them entirely, using shape, materials, and internal weapon design to shrink its radar signature down to something closer to a bird than a jet. In theory, Iran shouldn't even see it, let alone track it, let alone fire on it. But something clearly saw something. And that raises the first uncomfortable question. Was the jet detected earlier than anyone expected, or only at the worst possible moment? Iran claimed responsibility almost immediately. Footage surfaced. Unverified. But the United States confirmation made one thing undeniable. This was the first successful engagement of a United States manned aircraft in this conflict. That should have been impossible. It wasn't. So what changed? At first glance, this looks simple. It's not. Because stealth doesn't mean invisibility. It means reduced visibility under specific conditions, angles, and timing. And timing might be everything here. What if the jet wasn't hit on the way in, but on the way out? After a strike, aircraft often change altitude, speed, and orientation. Tiny shifts that can expose surfaces optimized to stay hidden. So the paradox emerges: the safest moment of the mission might actually be the most dangerous. Then there's another possibility. And it's bigger. Iran may not have been working alone, at least technologically. Reports point to a Chinese-built YLC-8B anti-stealth radar, a system specifically designed to detect low observable aircraft, with a claimed range reaching hundreds of kilometers. If that system played a role, this stops being a regional story. Because now the question isn't just how Iran tracked the jet, it's who else can. Let's zoom out for a second. This conflict didn't start yesterday. Since February 2026, U.S. forces have been systematically targeting Iran's air defense network. Radars, missile systems, command centers, the entire structure designed to prevent exactly this kind of engagement. The goal was clear: blind the system, break the chain, make Iranian airspace predictable. But this incident says something else. It didn't fully work. And here's the part most people miss. Iran doesn't need a perfect defense system. It just needs a surviving one. Mobile launchers, dispersed radars, systems that stay silent until the exact second a high-value target enters range. That's not failure. That's adaptation. And it creates a battlefield where nothing is fully suppressed, only temporarily quiet. Then things got worse. Because this wasn't just a tactical event. It was a strategic signal. If a country under sustained bombardment can still detect and damage a fifth-generation stealth fighter, then every assumption behind modern air dominance starts to bend. Not break, but bend. And in military planning, that's enough. Every air force is watching this, quietly, closely. Russia, China, North Korea, they're not reacting publicly, but they're studying the data, the patterns, the implications. Because the real question isn't, can the F-35 be hit? That's been answered. The real question is, under what conditions does it become vulnerable? And how repeatable is that window? Now, U.S. commanders face a choice. Do they keep flying deep penetration missions or pull back? Do they increase electronic warfare support, more jamming, more escort systems, more complexity layered onto every sortie? Because every adjustment has a cost. Time, coordination, risk, and war doesn't pause while you recalibrate. Meanwhile, Iran doesn't need to exaggerate this. It doesn't need a shoot-down. It doesn't need wreckage. It just needs the headline, "We hit one." And because that confirmation came from the U.S. itself, it carries weight far beyond the battlefield. But here's the detail that keeps this from becoming something even bigger. The pilot survived. The aircraft made it back. No sensitive technology was captured. That should be the end of the story. It isn't. Because near misses are where militaries learn the most, and where future conflicts quietly take shape. Now an investigation is underway. Radar logs, flight telemetry, electronic warfare data, and one critical piece, the pilot's account of what it felt like in that moment when something that shouldn't happen did. The findings will be classified, but their impact won't be. And this is where most people misunderstand what happens next. The outcome won't be announced in a press conference. It'll show up in behavior. Flight paths will change, mission timing will shift, support aircraft will move differently. Small adjustments, visible only if you know where to look. So where does this lead? Standard logic says escalation, more strikes, more pressure. But there's a paradox. The more dangerous the airspace becomes, the more carefully both sides have to move. Because one miscalculation doesn't just damage a jet, it changes the rules everyone thought they were playing by. And that brings us back to the core problem. The F-35 was built to solve air defense, to end this exact challenge. But being hit, even once, reopens the question it was designed to close. Not because it failed, but because it was touched. And in stealth warfare, that's all it takes to start a very different conversation. So the real story isn't just what happened, it's what happens next. Because the next mission over Iran won't just test a pilot, it'll test whether this was an anomaly or a pattern beginning to form.